The essence of Dharma is something which, for me, it manifests in the following manner. If it was, for it to be dharmic, it has to be universal. For it to be a fundamental law of creation, which is what Dharma is, it's an appreciation of how all things interact. It has to apply everywhere and to every single form. And so the Dharma of, I was walking earlier this morning and I saw a flower almost exploding into fire. It was so brightly colored, I felt that if I place a matchstick nearby, it'll just explode. It had so much life, a message that it wanted to share by virtue of what it was. And our understanding and experience is that every single form has the same desire to manifest its message. And so we walk through our journey of life without wanting to harm or diminish the message that each and every form is created to bring into existence and to express. And that's universal. That's the same everywhere. The advantage that we have over here is that many, many millennia ago, human beings were able to see that that's the reality of this existence. The disadvantage of nations and civilizations which don't have that is they may have been able to experience it and glimpse it, but they weren't able to contextualize it and understand it and accept it, nor indeed to write it. We've had mention of South America and other areas and the effect on their indigenous civilizations. And we can see that their first encounter with Europeans is something that most of them are still struggling to stand up from. But one thing that's noticeable is that if you look at the Native Americans, if you look at the Aboriginals, if you look at the South American civilizations, by and large, they have lost their connection with their ancestral roots. And there's a great deal of disturbance there. And it's, to my mind, it's because they knew the outer form of their dharmic history, but they never knew the inner form, and they have lost that inner connection. Here we're blessed, and time again, we call Bharat Dev Bhumi, time and time again it's nourished by some sort of a wisdom and an energy which resurrects the understanding that all of life fits together and is designed to live in harmony. And those natural rules, we follow them, sometimes without even knowing that that's what we're doing. And if you're like a small cog in an engine and you're performing your role and it's consistent with every other part of the engine, then everything moves forward. But one small cog which is slightly out of alignment or thinks of itself in some other way, that can disrupt the whole of machinery. But we have time and time again the benefits of sages and people who have steeped themselves in Shastra. They remind us of who we are and how we fit into the whole. The dharmic perspective is it's a multi-dimensional, completely integrated, ebullient ecosystem. And we know that we're a small part of that ecosystem. The other thing I realized in my traipsing around the world outside of Bharat was that attention. We have a civilizational shift in emphasis of attention. Resorting to a contemporary scripture, most of the youngsters will have probably come across this. Enter the Dragon with Bruce Lee. There is a part in there where he talks to a young student and he says, if you concentrate on the finger pointing to the moon, you will miss all of that heavenly glory. In our tradition, we recognized that the being at the center of our own universe is an incredibly glorious being. And so our attention, as we navigate, is on what is this thing that's working its way through existence. The European and Western civilizations, as they're called, their attention is not on themselves. They don't do things to improve and refine this creature, this creation that they are. They tend to do things to change the outside world so that it fits in better with where they currently are. And that is a huge imbalance there. The last thing I wanted to share was that we have the essence of Dharma is something that's quite difficult to communicate in the English language. There are severe limitations in using a language which was created by people whose inner driver was conquest and domination. And so the English language is ideally suited for competition, for debate, for argument, for conquest. and to try and understand and articulate the essences which are collaborative, which are built on coexistence in a language which doesn't really have those concepts embedded in it yet, is a very difficult ask. And so in most spaces and places where I speak, I always encourage people not to use the terminology of the Western Indologists and the Western religionists, etc., but always to use dharmic Hindi Sanskrit words for dharmic Hindi Sanskrit concepts. And let's have the opportunity, let's give the opportunity to the other civilizations to expand their vocabulary set, so that when they talk about dharna or dhyan, they don't talk about mindfulness and meditation. We have very clear understandings of what those words mean and what they enshrine as an experience. And each time we lose that, we allow it to become diminished. Something which is this big is dramatically diminished to fit into a much smaller concept. And for us to be able to share this whole wealth, this treasure house that we are the recipients of, we need to encourage the students to understand that they are students and that adhikar is important. A fundamental of dharmic giving and receiving is the establishment of adhikar. And I think a problem that we've had in the past is that we renounced adhikar in a spirit of unrestrained generosity and magnanimity, and it hasn't really served us. Adhikar is a wise principle that we should always adhere to and aspire to, so that when somebody wants to receive something from our civilization, from our knowledges of our bodies of knowledge, then we need to assess whether in giving them that, what's the responsibility that we're shouldering. If you teach somebody the science of Sankhya and then he progresses to create an atomic bomb and then realizes, oh dear, that's our responsibility. If you give an unprepared society the knowledge of mathematics without restraint and without control, then you get a society which creates unbelievable creations, many of which are detrimental even to their creators. So a fundamental part of a dharmic balance is the notion of adhikar. The last thing I would say is that we are guided by an understanding that there is something called satya. And satya is often translated into truth, but truth doesn't capture the value of what satya is. I think the word reality in the English language is a closer approximation to what satya is. So we are always searching for satya in each and everything that we encounter. This is our sadhana, this is our journey. And so we don't have the situation. In America, only last month, they had a flat earth conference. So a whole group of people who believe that the earth is flat, they all gathered together to share their ideas. And this is a purely scientific approach which says what I can see, what I can measure, is the only form of reality that I'm going to acknowledge.
I thought that was medieval.
Ji?
I thought that was in medieval ages.
Some haven't given up the idea.
Well, Florida is quite interesting in terms of its civilizational age. But that was only a few months ago. And so, again, they have abandoned the manner in which we scrutinize things. And we combine not just observation, but we can combine scientific analysis. We have disciplines for interrogating and for understanding. And all of those allow us to glimpse into the depth of something and see the truth of what that thing is. So we have the capacity to look beyond name and form and see essence. And if there is anything which is dharmic, it is the capacity to see essence in each and every creation and each and every idea and each and every experience. And that is something that we have to share.
Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content and to support our work, please visit citti.net.